This is especially after a little while. You just have to change. Hello. So, just in a very YouTubey mood today, and I guess I often am, even if you know the success of the video kind of varies. But fantastic. And it's interesting. I almost forgot. Just as I was about to start this, I heard outside the window a car horn beep. Or it wasn't an alarm. It was just being locked, I think. But it reminds me of somebody on our street. We were simply on our deck. There was a bit of a thing that happened recently. Actually, I think it came up in a couple of videos, and I almost thought it was purposeful. Like she was trying to say, like, just so you know, my car is secure, and I can make it even louder because there was a softer one and then a louder one for a good while. And she saw that we were in the front yard, but I should state that is just completely off the mark. As watch our videos, get to know me. It's someone who's just, and yeah, I just realized my socks that came up, whatever, overly paranoid, judgmental, and not like we thought they were as people. Just in case they happen to see this, like I'm not trying to be mean, but it does come across as, that and the thing that happened before with the text is paranoid, judgmental, and slightly not normal, actually. And of course, rude and hurtful and unnecessary. There's another, kind of, yeah, and basically, but if they are getting a certain perception and they think that's what they're getting and they have certain desires, I mean, basically one of the things is that they would try to tell us, not to look at their place. Well, I mean, and we'd probably be recognized, although maybe not in this lighting, but anyway, but I mean, just because I happened to say something I noticed the one day, which was a small thing, because when you look out our foyer window, there are places across the street, essentially, and now I've become kind of paranoid. I'm going to take this off the wall just because of the way it's shining, although that might be what makes interesting marks, but not in this lighting, I don't think. That's kind of cool to see it kind of looking up at the plants, the mirror. But as far as another thing, I guess it's high enough. It's a bit maybe distracting, but whatever. But yeah, so basically, in our foyer, I mean, or in the yard, but I just feel like, like it's like bad energy to look that way, or, I don't want them to get weirder. But I mean, it's very hard, naturally you look around, you're your neighbor, you happen to notice your neighbor's places because they're close to you, close in location at least. And so it's kind of like, like there's two windows. I somewhat feel like I'm, I shouldn't have to listen because it's a stupid request, but like I can't look out of now because, and again, nothing sketchy. Like, get my vibe. I thought they were getting it, and I'm not sure if it was the mother who we've talked. Well, honestly, we haven't talked with either of them that much, but enough that I thought they knew we were good people. Maybe they think that's a bit weird. I don't know, and he is, but it's kind of like maybe they just don't want to get in the habit of doing favors for us, but not that we've asked more than once. Well, twice we have asked, I guess. So yeah, we have, I guess, but not like we ask often. But yeah, it's very strange. I mean, like I say, I think most people would have a hard time if they have a couple windows that see onto a certain property in their home that they're going to look out, not doing so. And it was, I don't know if I should, I almost feel like for those that don't know me, because I think that I just think they probably would recognize me, even this kind of letting this distance. But I feel like I should almost maybe say what happened that way. you realize it, hopefully realize it wasn't as they, that the reaction was a little odd. And but then, yeah, like I say, a couple of days ago, it started soft, and just hearing that before they started, and then it got louder. And then I swear she sat in the car. Like, I mean, Glenn was outside, so I was talking to him and from inside the door and just in general. And so I noticed when she went to her car, and then I mean, I was, like I say, I wasn't constantly watching, but one, because of the thing, and two, just because I wasn't. I was doing other things as well in the house, and I don't know. But it did kind of appear as if she just sat in the car, didn't go anywhere. Like, she certainly didn't drive off. I don't know, maybe she was just getting something from the car. And that was it. It looked like it was a, I don't know what it was a car, because it wasn't a Jeep. But anyway, I mean, you're gonna see things in the neighborhood, and actually, I kind of think it's kind of a good thing, not necessarily to like overdo it, but to be watchful in your neighborhood, because you know sometimes there might be something that's important to see. I still remember once the ones like they're across the street but down a little. The ones that are a bit more right across directly from us had roofers there ages ago, and I started to get the impression that the owners weren't home during the day. I mean, they had school age kids, and or at least I don't know. I felt called to, because I saw it, let them know. And it seems like they weren't aware, because the next day it seems like anything that they had on the property that they'd left there, seems like somebody had said something about how we don't want you to finish the job, and they gathered it up. I saw somebody come and inspect, but it didn't seem like they finished it. And I just felt, that and and in some ways you could say it's of the trade, but I think we had our screen door open to let it fresh air in, and I heard all this shouting, and then I look, and there was three roofers. Two of them, he was standing by his motorbike for a while and at their truck, and they didn't actually seem to be doing much. And I do and I don't feel awkward saying this, but the one who seemed to be doing the most was actually the one that they were kind of and again, I understand maybe some would say it's a macho industry and blah blah blah, but I didn't think it was necessary. They were kind of bullying him. I didn't hear a lot of words. I feel like I saw him got pushed, and then they went off, and I seem to remember, this was a while ago, thinking, should I go and like say something to him? And then they came back, the other two, or he left, something like that. But I did. I told the owners, like, they didn't seem to be doing much. They were pushing the one guy around in a way that did not seem to be being playful, as some guys gotta do. And we're like cussing, and I can't remember. There may have been one or two other words used that made me feel a little iffy, and it's like, well, that guy probably didn't stay at the job very long, because you want to like who you work with and get along with them, and some people would say that there's no place for that on a work site anyway. It was for a home, a house. Does remind me of when we did some landscaping for a lady, though, who I'm thinking has got to pass my attention, just like Hilda. I must look for her and Carolyn Aldridge, because I had a fairly good friend at one point, and he liked to kind of work me up sometimes, I guess you could say. And so we were doing work for this lady. I did some just myself, and then he came once or twice. And he was doing it then. And I was surprised. And I almost thought she noticed. And she was a little straight-laced. And I mean, she was an older woman, possibly religious. I don't know. But, she paid us. She didn't make, I mean, we didn't let it. And again, that wasn't really aggressive. And that guy was just hard to figure out. I'm not trying to sound judgy or whatever, but and then the elevator truck, yeah. But yeah, anywho, and I'm just noticing this cool little rake. I don't know if it's a flashlight or it's a cool little rake. Ironically, but yeah, yeah, I could. It's not the warmest out today. Although it would be good. Well, they'd be less dusty when they rained on, but they could be soggy. So it depends on the timing. But I did say I might. So, and of course he moved the rig in. So maybe I'll use this as a reminder. I don't think it's something he uses often. I don't even know what it would be for. Little gardening jobs, I guess. I don't know. I'm still discovering things. Sometimes. I've only lived here 7 years, but I mean, we maybe haven't had this that long. I almost remember it. Anyway, I wanted to. So that was a little bit of distraction, diversion, whatever. Again, this is not hugely scripted. Um, it seems like when I suggest suggesting topics or songs or whatever, I don't know. I guess it's putting people on the spot. I don't often get them, but I have one idea. I'm going to go away for a moment and then come back. I have one idea. I also have someone I'm hoping might tune in, although it's just specifically, although it actually more than one might because it's noon hour. I thought it'd be a couple hours later than this, and I do have some things I'm working through, kind of that I brought to the couch that I'm looking at, um, and on the devices. And actually, that was one of the things that I don't. Oh yes, I do have. That was the other thing I might use as a topic. I don't know. It's nice just to get the thoughts out, be able to refer back to them, possibly have a conversation with viewers on them, and yeah. So I'll be right back. I'm just noticing that in here now. That right. I know it's a church. I don't know how the other uses it. I'm sure it'd be fine with it being diverse, and I'm still trying to figure something out. So even if it's a couple people or anyone else who might know me, but yeah. So first of all, just to make sure I did. Did I finish my kind of rambling about the? I don't know if I did. Basically, essentially, I can't remember what it was at the moment. Oddly, weird. I can't remember what it was. Oh, right, to get some medical tests done. They were open on a Saturday, but only till noon, and I slept in not knowing that. Um, so I had messaged, because I don't have a lot of family, mostly acquaintances. I think I said that in the thing. Other neighbors of ours don't drive, um, or we don't know them that well. But that guy was thankful that I told him about stuff. But I happened to be standing in the foyer, noticed her get into her vehicle, had recently gotten their number because they let me borrow their phone for something when we were having connectivity issues and didn't have and I was open and honest, and I thought it made a lot of sense what I was asking, and they were nearby and handy and blah blah blah. Anywho, point of the matter being is that I'm just really quickly sending a message, and then I'll be right back and notice somebody just tuned in. Okay, the person left. I don't know if I've thought of that before. I have thought during the day, maybe. Anyway, so basically, yeah, it was like, I don't mention this in the other video, but since I kind of was alluding to it because something made me think of it, yeah, basically, I texted and said, "Oh, happened to notice that she just left." And I mean, we've had a few interactions with them, not many. We've also not been any problem to them. Again, maybe they know Glenn be working with the flu or whatever it is. But intended to have, but there's not many left of those. Speaking of RVs and candy, these are old, so there was two, but I think it's okay if I have one. And I'm curious about these. I think they're coconut. I don't do candies very often, but and I did. I had a nice lunch, but the aftertaste is a little funny. And like, I am home, but I should try more than one today. But yeah, I haven't had a Werther's in ages, so. But anyway, point of the matter being was like, if she happens to be back, and I didn't even think how I said that, and then it kind of happened. But I said, if she, and this was before I started seeing the second car, I feel like, or I'd forgotten because I haven't had it long. We need to get somewhere before noon, and I think I said something about it. It seemed like it was really windy out. It wasn't actually that bad. We managed, but and then said, "Oh, I happen to know she's just coming." I don't know if I said it wasn't quick enough. I don't know if I saw her as she was arriving back, but I said, "Oh, she's already back." That wasn't long. Pretty much got a message back. I think from the mother. I'm not sure which one has that first name. And I'm trying to be somewhat anonymous here, but basically was saying, not doing any favors and don't watch our house. And like I said, I just think it's stupid because we have two windows that we are going to look out. Although, like I say, I'm a little apprehensive these days. Um, I said to the pastor, and I think she said, I think we just don't want you watching the house. That's all. So I don't know. Actually, comes to think of it, if she thought that was stupid and unrealistic. She seemed to kind of. I don't know if I like this. It's not as strongly flavored as I thought, but I think they were kind of. Oh, I found them in a bag upstairs. Try these ones because it was those kinds specifically I found. Caramel and coconut. Big though, they're huge. Or is it? It might be a mint. I was hoping it was coconut, but I can't tell at the moment yet. I think it's a mint. So. But anywho, sorry about that. A bowl of candy has distracted me. But yeah, so anywho, you're welcome to share your thoughts, I guess, about it, but like we shouldn't feel, and if they feel that, they shouldn't, and maybe I shouldn't either. But I just feel like I mean, it's already feeling for various other reasons, and just not being super busy at the moment. And it's kind of like, I guess I feel like we're being controlled at our home a little bit, and not sure, if they're letting it go or not, and not really wanting to go. Well, definitely not wanting to go to the door, not really knowing if it's comfortable to talk to them. I mean, if they were going to let it go, you'd think they would have unblocked. And this, I don't mean for this channel to be about neighborhood drama, and there really isn't that much of it. But I mean, moments with people, that's for sure. But she could have unblocked and said, you know what, we realized that sounded sounded kind of odd and stupid or whatever. We don't mind you asking, but we can't help you out. We'd rather you not ask us for favors, something like that. If it was to happen anytime soon, I'd feel like they possibly saw this because, people will find things on the internet. And then, I don't know who they told either. And then, maybe doing it because of that. But at least they're still doing it. So I don't know. It's kind of like, and I did eventually one. But, and he didn't say a lot. He's just like, oh, okay. Or something like that. Oh. I wish he'd said more, but that's all I remember him saying. Okay, there's two pens up here, so one of these has to go downstairs. I wondered where that went. Anywho, so whether they were to have said, and we realized we were slightly unrealistic to request that, you know. However, if they lived across us on this side, it's almost doable because the only windows that we have on this side of the house is this one, which got a bunch of big plants on it in front of it. One downstairs that I don't usually sit that close to. I sit at the other side of the couch that has, some big plants and gazebo. A small kitchen window and the little window above our door. So that would be easier. But yeah, no. But we're certainly, none of our other neighbors hate us. I mean, I have mixed feelings about one of the other ones, but we're good neighbors. Yeah, maybe he plays music, but it's usually just for an hour at a time. Tries not to be loud about it. Doesn't take the sound carries, and it's not like aggressive music or anything. So it's they could have worse neighbors, and they could. Or maybe they're a bit embarrassed. Maybe they're like, well, we did kind of sound stupid and we're embarrassed, and so we're just going to try and forget about it. But I would caution people that go through a certain situation where they might feel that. See your part, see maybe where you've been wrong. And I would say try and adjust it as soon as you can. Because it doesn't come to resolve if you don't, and it doesn't necessarily make you look good either. And, some people may say, I don't really care, but why not? Why not, want to do your best to come across as a good person and be likable? I mean, some people are really snobs, and I understand life can make you bitter sometimes, but there's also truth in the energy you put out can be the energy you get back. So if you want good energy, you have to put, right? And yeah, at this point, it's been 2 or 3 weeks, I think. So, and I don't think it's a situation of, well, I feel the ball's in your court, or, well, this is in your hands to make the next move. I don't think they want us to make one. But what does that mean? Again, it's also in a non-creepy way, just natural impulse. Like I say, when you look outside, it's one of the things that you're going to see. And I don't think I should have to live thinking, oh, if I do look, though, only for a few seconds. Like, if something is, I don't want to. Well, but you know what? Part of me feels like if something was going down that seemed a little sketchy, and usually things are pretty good, but seemed a little sketchy, and it was happening at their place when I didn't see them, there is a part of me that still cares because that's who I am. There's a part of me that thinks, oh, well, they don't want us watching their place, so let it happen. I'll just, try and be more careful with ours, that other, I don't know. But I think people will understand what I'm saying. Like, it's a unrealistic request. It's not like and I wouldn't. It's not like I'm going over there and looking in their windows or snooping around the garage or anything like that. Like, and the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm not only realizing that I did nothing wrong, but kind of getting aggravated. It's kind of like, how dare they say what they said and have that kind of reaction and such, kind of thing. Not really related to that. Actually, not at all. I really actually hadn't even intended to come talking about that, and I've maybe said it slightly different in one of the other videos, in the past 3 weeks. I can't remember which one, but I do kind of remember it coming up when it was more fresh. But it's a bit chilly up here. But it may not still be waking in there. He likes to do a lot of it. But hopefully, I'll say so for me. But what do you call it? And I did have a somebody. Yeah. So it's only because I heard that sound as I was setting up the video, and then it reminded me of this neighbor. And like I said, it was her that was at her car and seemed to have issues with the remote entry being loud. That's the other thing. I'm sensitive to noise, and so actually I came in when it got louder. But like when I heard it, I can't remember if I was already looking, but it really doesn't matter. Like because I'm not doing anything weird other than looking around. Anyways, I'm not going to keep going on about it. So we are at the 24-minute mark, and at this point, I would like to say that the next part is kind of the reason I initially came to do this. Then I'll look at this a little bit, and then I'll go down because I might want to put socks on and do other stuff. But this part, I'm not necessarily scripted, but I have certain ways that I think about this topic. But I know that I want to talk about it ahead of time. So I'm just gonna say that and I mean, we can set it to no kids, but it all depends. What you know, I don't know how they do that actually, and clearly it doesn't always work because occasionally we have had a couple of teens tune in, and it's kind of like whether they're using their own device or not. And as far as teens having devices, just really quickly about that, they were doing a thing in schools here a little while ago, and it sounded like they were getting everybody to put the phones on a shelf. Better hope that you don't have it set to communicate with other phones or whatever, like collect stuff or whatever. But I remember commenting on the post saying something about, well, how do they recognize their phone app? I mean, I know that there is some variety, but a lot of phones probably look very similar unless you go looking. Okay, yeah, that's my this and my that, And the person said, "Oh, believe me, they can tell," which I kind of see, but don't as well. Anyway, point of the matter is, I understand from the perspective of parents wanting to know, what their kids are to, or and just like anything, I think there's pros and cons to it, or like most things. But I mean, it can happen. I don't even know how to really fully express, but it can happen. And part of me thinks too, what? Just like with parents, they can shield their kids as much as they want. The universe doesn't work that way. Whether it's people that don't have kids, not used to being around kids, aren't aware of their environment. It's amazing how unaware a lot of people are. Whatever it is, they're going to hear cussing. They're going to hear certain topics. And then there's the internet, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we can't shield our kids. We can just prepare them for the world, to prepare them to live in the world and try and be good people, right? So, but and I've got to do myself, and it's not dangerous. Like anybody who's been wrong about me is well, But and I know that we shouldn't let it bother us, but it's hard when you know that somebody's wrong, and when it has certain impacts, sometimes. But anyhow, so but and also teenagers are teenagers, but I feel like I should say, and mostly agree with the fact that I should say that this next part, 29-minute on, well, not necessarily completely on. I would say 29 minutes, and then for about 15 minutes after that, and I'm probably not going to go too much longer. And I might have to say this as people tune in. It's true, unless I put it in the comments. Maybe I will. Yeah, it has a character. That's the other thing. I was like a few shy, and I was exactly on the 100, and similar titles earlier. But even for comments, they seemed to, which I didn't know. I'm just going to very quickly. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. But I'll be quick because I have to. Yeah, I'm getting lots of welcoming sunny out of the creek. even when he had the thing in his mouth, you feel like it had him. Yeah, getting lots of that, did it? Okay, so what I want to talk about, I don't know if I really want to say what the letters stand for. Oh, and is it Monday? No, it's Tuesday, right? A lot of cars in the parking lot right now. I do don't. No, I am gonna close this. I think because I noticed he closed it after having it open for a while, and it's a bit chilly. And just in case my voice carries outside, you know, even though I know this is the internet. But again, you know what? What I'm about to talk about is something very human and honestly really not gendered, but or ageist for the most part. So I mean, I know someone who's very accepting of like gender stuff, but yet she goes Mother Earth. Yet she says things about um I'd ask her to tune in because it is noon hour, but I know she's possibly got emails to look at, including mine and others. She's got other things she's trying to prepare for coming up, and might just want to enjoy slowing down a little bit. Although, talk about that, but and she's very much, she has dinner, but then going about your day to day sometimes doesn't let you, especially certain people's schedules. But yeah, basically, and she was saying that the feminine energy and the versus the masculine energy were different things, and but you know she should have. I mean, she did, but she didn't realize who she was talking to. I mean, I don't know. I just don't. I mean, of course, it's you have to somewhat. It's natural, it's normal, and it is a thing, But I try not to focus a lot on gender. And that's the other thing as a guy, I could say, hey, that's not entirely true. But that's the other thing. And well, they knew that one at the corner. I can't remember. The mother said something. I said, "Oh, you guys knew about something." And then I think the dog says, "Yeah, we thought so. It just told me." I don't know. Point matter is yeah. Anywho, but I can't remember. I veered a little bit there, but basically, I've got feet with those socks too. Where I don't want to go in the other weekend. But yeah, I'm gonna be able to let the dog out another time and say hi. So this has been in the other room for a while now because it still needs more trimming. But this one kind of too. And anyway, sorry. Distracted by the house plants. But in this particular video, I don't know if I want to elaborate as to what the letters stand for, but it's something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. It might be worth talking about. Although what I would like to ask is anybody that comments on this, if you could try to also comment on some of the other stuff and either put this one at the end or somewhere in the middle of your comment, because I feel like there might be occasionally people that we know that see this. Again, this is largely human and it's not, but it's a bit of a hot button topic. And, even if they don't tune into this part, because I don't know, I think I have it set to show the comments afterwards, but I also can't remember. But even for people that see it afterwards, if I did say it in the video too, so if they skip that part, sure, they might be curious. I would hope that if you say enough in your comment, no pressure, that maybe they just read the first part, or it's often the last part of something that gets read is what's most kind of focused on and retained. It's interesting that way, but that's if they make it to the end of it, right? But it's just I kind of want them to see the comments about it either, but I wouldn't mind getting comments if we may about this too. If you go by your first and last name as your YouTube channel and it's unique enough, maybe just say I'd like to talk about the thing or something like that. And sure, you can find me on other social media, and then we could do it that way. Although my messenger's not working right now, so that just is So the only options were the email phone. But anyway, to not drag this out too much longer, because I did say I was going to try and keep it at about 15 minutes back. Basically, and you might realize what I'm talking about. Basically, it's the thing of a certain thing, and I feel like when I've done it, bad luck follows. Recently, I feel like, well, and I didn't full on. I was looking at the pictures. It's the pictures, and it wasn't, you know, full on either, but it, close enough. When they say, "Oh, I don't know this and that," I get very close, and people have imaginations or think things. But and then we had a really good, unexpectedly good day the other day, and yeah, it's kind of a bit of chat, but you know what? It's also just general. But it's weird that that lady who's actually, I found out just a little bit before, is getting back on Saturday, said you could have a YouTube channel instead of do you have one? I don't know. I mean, her English was kind of okay, but maybe a little bit of a language barrier. We said we did, but we didn't give the information. Same with the other lady, actually. But anywho, and that would have been a good segue, but I just want to finish this first. Um, I wondered if maybe I've been forgiven, but then I've also said to myself, well, the world is humongous, even with the God, our Creator. You know, He's not watching everybody that closely. I mean, He puts us all here for each other, and we're supposed to help each other and do good for each other, and this and that. I don't feel like He has the power to work miracles in everybody's life constantly, anyway. For each person. Um, and I think that's just a very realistic way to look at things. But I will say that, and yeah, I think He is of forgiveness, especially if it's not like the most heinous or worst thing you could do, and it's not, I mean, yeah, sometimes if we get certain sites that really inclusive or not very inclusive, in certain particular times, like I said I was going to look at one, but I may have been the one I was on today, but that was weeks ago, but I could be impulsive, like I say, suggestible, and I think some part of me thinks, oh, just the thought alone of like don't do it, or certain things were showed to me where it's like, okay, well, yes, those are kind of, they remind me of things going on right now, or things that are important to me, or things that I'm hoping for. They don't want to mess up, and then I do this thing on the internet in a kosher type of way, I would say, but I'm still doing it. But you know what? But one of the things is that part of it is some people say, oh, you have more energy, oh, you're this, oh, you're that. I mean, there was one and it was a group and it said for Christ, and this guy posted and he like was flirting with this cashier and took her home, and and well, they haven't seen, is he deadbeat now, and you're not really getting to know the person, but we can all be impulsive, especially when we're younger. But but I mean, like I wasn't doing that or a lot of other bad things, and I don't believe our angels or loved ones, even if they're around us, if they can tell that we might be going down that path for a little while, they'll come back later. Unless, of course, they're into that sort of thing. But I mean, you'd know which of your loved ones might be and which wouldn't be. And, but, and I know it's one of those topics, but you know what? There's everything on YouTube. And I'm doing my best to say that, this is like 18 plus, and it may or may not be close to that 29 mark, 39. So I got one more minute. No, but they might catch the tail end and wonder. But no, and so I think I already said a lot of it. I also remember one of my loved ones who very clearly is communicating with me from the afterlife and is not evil. In the past has communicated since it's been a while. Well, actually not that long, when there was like 4 or 5 of them in the room, just visiting with me, and he's reminded me, and also the type of books that are out there, like that get published and famous, and the things that famous people do is like way more crazy in this area and in general. But was pretty much saying he made it there, and he was pretty wild in life, especially in that way. It's religion, I feel that does that, as with a lot of things, not to be judgy or whatever, but and also a lot of people, feel whether religious or not, perhaps that got to kind of, as you went like a moment or two after getting here, um, keep the population growing. And part of me thinks, not saying anything about the people who are already here, although maybe some of them, but part of me thinks, you know, isn't the world big enough? Like why do we have to necessarily grow the population? You know, I mean, sure, babies getting born, miracle, sure, whatever, but good for their parents and their families and stuff, whatever. But like especially the state of the way things are in the world and how life can be, like I don't think I'd want to bring a kid into this world, as much as sometimes I'd like to be a father, and I'd like to be that influence, and I'd like to show them the world and show them what I've learned and through life and this and that. But if that's the reason, there are some of us that either can't or don't desire to have kids. Like I say this, but my desire is still pretty low on being a father, um, and I don't have kids. Um, if I did, it would probably be in my 50s or 60s and adopting. You know, the relationship I'm in now is with someone who doesn't necessarily hate kids. In fact, I think I hate them more sometimes. Sometimes I like kids that act mature. I mean, also, a sense of, you know, play, play and fun, and being like acting like a kid. But basically not being bad is the kind of kids that I like. Um, but then I don't know. I like mature ones, but then it's almost like you're not acting your age. You're too mature, or it's like maybe you might forget that they're a kid briefly, but no, it. Just some are very prim or whatever, and not necessarily snobbish, but you know what I mean. But yeah, basically, and yeah, I think they were maybe saying there was definitely people around. They weren't really looking this way, and that door was open. Door was going, was on. But yeah, I know that seems really, but it made sense at the time. It seemed weird to kind of combine those topics, other than just to say, they're going to get their hands on certain types of things anyway, whether I or anybody else tries to prevent it or not. And anybody who doesn't realize that is stupid and over. I don't know. But being careful, right? But yeah, so I just feel like when I have, my luck doesn't get better, or things that I think are looking good. Like not long after, I looked at an email and not only found out that a venue that's not super close, but we only needed it once or twice for a performance. The rates have run up, even though I know the one that operates the open mic nights, kind of, sort of. And I guess when I asked if you any updates for me that maybe you got distracted from giving me, rather than saying yes, I talked to Lex and you know we'll let you use it for free, or this other suggestion that I made because you're low income. She said that the rates have run up. It's 100 now, but for as much as 3 hours to rent the space, and you also have to get insurance. So that was a real kicker because it doesn't sound like my show is going to be infringed this year. I might still hear something as it gets closer to the time, but I got an email saying submissions for 2025 are now open. Or no, I think 2026. And I don't think the same person emailed them, but I'd have to check. I don't think that one he got was worded that way. I'm just going to quickly check that. But no, that's about the volunteer application is now available. But I prefer to do it by phone in person. I don't think that's available quite yet. It's still too many months away. Um, Still working my way through playing to my brother. Brother, I want to talk about Ray's funeral. The last little bit of his email there. What was I looking for? Oh, right. But why am I not seeing it? And why does a new one always open in the corner? I think it was this far down. Oh, okay. No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I just knew that that was something I was hoping to hear back from them on. So I thought it was not the same thing. And it's getting kind of far in my inbox, but hopefully they'll send a reminder, or as it gets closer, I'll know that it's something I need to do, and I'll do it the way I usually do it. I'm not gonna look at that because I don't want to see anything I don't want to see. BC? I don't know if I remember the Louise, but this looks like it could be here. So I might send this before I go down. Then I'll talk about the third time today. First time was when I almost went out, but then didn't. And the second time is when I did go out, and then this is the third time. Do you remember the Edmonton connection? Sorry, just doing something. Nobody's here at the moment. Have I said everything I want to say on that though? I think I pretty much have. I mean, all the reasons, no, it's not her, that I talked myself into it being okay. But then I see certain things and then that thing right afterwards, and it's kind of like it messes with my mind. And the fact that I keep looking at it to kind of questioning, is it something to do or not? Like I say, it would only be when I become a widow, and I don't know why widows were ever stigmatized in India. I was there recently. Only if I ever become a widow, and with a woman, might we possibly consider having kids. But then I'd probably be, well, I don't know for sure, I suppose, but I'd probably be about 50 or 60. I'm 38 now, so I mean, I don't know how to find her. I might be able to on on the other device there, because I've searched for it before, but it's a common name. I'm just thinking about something I was thinking about earlier. And there was a funny coincidence. But yeah, so I'm just going to wrap this up soon. Try and make it under an hour maybe, but we'll see. I'll look at that later. And yeah, so what am I wanting to look forward, or what do I have for looking forward to? Being part of a couple groups coming up. Another event. And yeah, I was on my bike and I could have tried to see if I could figure out, but I wanted to get home with my lunch, and it's not the nicest though. To see what the behind area looks like in case that's where it is, but I don't really need to know ahead of time. I'll find out on the particular date of this agency place, because I thought it was the river behind, and not a lot of space. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, and yeah, getting it rough, but I just used to it. I don't know. Possible podcast guest, more sales. I was talking with someone. This is a part I almost wish had been recorded, and now it will be. But we're going to do future podcasts together. And she said, what would be your ideal, like your dream life or whatever? And I think she was kind of alluding to career, and that makes sense enough to me. I said, I'd like to move to Iowa. I'd like to get more music opportunities. I'd like to do more of the healing. I mean, in a way, can't be hated as much if I'm just doing it for myself, but people give me a chance, and I am mostly used to doing it just for myself. So it's a bit of a challenge doing it for someone else, especially if they're difficult. But and I think the angels would pick up on that sometimes, and it'd be like, I wish they would just talk about me freely and the legacy and have a conversation, and I'll chime in and blah blah blah. It's like yeah, I don't know. They just feel certain things that we might want to say are less necessary than other things. But it's interesting when I see famous ones on videos or whatever. And I mean, obviously, you have to kind of I mean, some things are very common, but you have to it is helpful, especially in a big group or whatever, or an audience, to kind of for them to be able to pinpoint for the person to know that okay, we're talking about the same person. But the way that they can get specific sometimes, why why they talk about the health, I don't know. I guess people hold on to that. They hold on to their loved ones having had health problems and this and that. I try not to focus on that stuff because I mean, I don't know, it's just not the way I do it, and I don't think it's really needed. Um, Again, it's mostly my own, life or whatever, this and that. I'm thinking of my one friend that was in a coma. Um, you know, and it's interesting. Sometimes all I have to do is think it to being, and other times it takes more than that. But I do sense, like she says, and we visit again. It's like I summon them sometimes in a way. Um, and she says, "Hey, friend," she says, "So, yeah, I just, was kind of around the area, trying to enjoy a bit of the brightness in the sky, and I got notified that you're doing a podcast, and I was about to come out. Oh, did you now?" And she says, I and I'm thinking like JP, for instance. She says, I somewhat wish you hadn't found out, and I kind of get that, kind of that I've been in a coma because although I do think you try sometimes, I've noticed that you struggle to look past that. But hey, you know what? One thing I did find out was that it was only like a couple days, and I mean, if she, even though I do kind of believe that they can hear again when they're in that kind of mode, she wouldn't have been the same. She wouldn't have necessarily looked as I remembered her looking. She wouldn't have been able to communicate. I do and don't feel like she was high energy. She certainly lived an active life, but she was also fairly laid back. And I just feel like, yeah, I mean, so part of me feels like, okay, well, I didn't miss much then, not knowing at the time and seeing her. But then also part of me feels like sad that she was in that state, even briefly. But then part of me thinks, well, at least it was briefly, you know. But she says, hey, I'm not going to necessarily be able to stop you from thinking about that piece of information. But as you know, we often wish our loved ones to know that we don't want to be thought of as sick. She says it's great if you're trying to learn more and whether you have it or not, be more involved in the community connected to what I passed from. Um, she says she really admires that. But, you know, I know that she's fine now. So, and like her insert says, remember the good times. Be happy because she has lived. Um, she says, hey, I'm not going to tell any of my male friends not to show emotion. I know that they cry because, just like anybody, they cry because they miss me and they care about me. Um, you know, but, and I get it, she says, but we'd still rather see you not crying. Um, so, but yeah, so that's the four things. Oh, this one friend though, she had said that when I talked about the things I wanted to do, I lit up. Did I notice? She even asked. And I said, well, interestingly, um, and then I look at the tablet, this, that. I think I did because, yeah, it makes sense. But then I think I also kind of did the opposite in some ways because I wondered, is this going to be something that, is more in my future? Is this something that's going to, in other words, grow and this and that? And, but then bad things happen to good people in here. But, and she seemed to understand this. It's like, yeah, well, this and that. She also was a big believer in talking about things as if they're happening. I said, well, I get that, but in reality, we can know when they're not, and it doesn't necessarily change. I meant to say it doesn't necessarily change things. I mean, sometimes easier said than done. She did get that part a little bit. I think she was just trying to promote optimism when I was trying to be a bit more realistic. Not that that can't mean optimism, but or she says fake it till you make it, and that sent me. I wish I could reference my messenger because there is a, I want to say last name Senji, although that may be famous. I can't remember. Fake it till you make it. That's what they say. Must be faking it because I'm faking it every day. Something like that. I don't like that F word, because I'm not a fake person, in any sense really. But I remember I had that on loop, or at least the instrumental, and then I made up a little addition to it because it was just like a sample. I think that possibly the full song wasn't even out yet. Um, and I sent it to someone, and manager was admitted or to some hospital, or whatever. Anyway, and basically, I can't remember the details, but or I can't remember what I said, but I wish I could. But because that was a while ago. But I'd rather just make it. And you can't always get what you want, but it's about time, I would say. It's a good says, believe that things are starting to get better. Um, but yeah, and that lady sounds like she's going to be back many more times, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything funny in a particular detail, but and then that's the channel, which I could go back and look at. That's Glenn's post about Sunny. I can close that because again, it's just that recently my browser relaunched the one mode, but not the other. It does that sometimes. Center blank center. We talked about that with space. A lot of this would be outdated on the. Who is this that quickly replied? Oh, after the music. By delay. After the music. Delay. Like I played on the phone the other night. Unlike with the video call, it was just a phone call. I would prefer that. Probably easier for her. And she said that was wonderful. Thank you for um, huh. That's interesting. I saw Ray kind of standing like this, listening. Then she's like, "Okay, I gotta go. Bye. Wait, though." And then Roger comes in. Hey, how are you? This is the way he talked, and I don't know if this will get the dog worked up because it's just the way that he talks. And so I'm gonna try and make this as real as I can for me and anybody that might. I don't know, but either way, he says, "How you doing?" And then he says, I said, this is interesting. This is interesting. Let me just quickly see, although it's now the end of the noon hour, and she's not showing us online. That's fine. But I sense that my friend is not in a creepy or uncomfortable way, but just in a way of I haven't seen you in a long time. I'm not too familiar with this kind of communication. I just passed away recently. We've not ever communicated in this way. When we moved, we lost touch, and it's kind of like taking me in a way, like kind of like. So, he says, and he's just jumping right into something that I wondered. He says, and maybe I'll share this with my mother, who knows, because I haven't talked with her in a while. Although that's partly by choice, but he says, "Hey, I may not have been a good husband sometimes, or a good person." He says, "No one is perfect. And he says he was set in ways. And he says that she was such a calm, nice lady. And maybe at times, I came across as aggressive, but then she knew that it was also my personality. But don't you be sitting there saying I'm a bad person now. You know, that's where it kind of he stopped. But oh, right, because I'm verbalizing what he's saying, right? Yeah, and basically, yeah, I have many good memories of doing the holidays with you guys and hanging out with you guys, and I do feel like he was mostly a quiet guy, and I'll always remember his laugh. It was a little bit like RuPaul's, but not quite. He says, "Woohoo!" Woohoo. No, that was the person that bought from us on the weekends, coming back this coming weekend. And he's looking around our place, and he's smirking at that a little bit, actually, which I don't know if I should say what it is because it's not in view. I don't think I'd ever noticed. Well, he just recently had that out, and then I guess he put it in there. That's got to be putrid. Um, this is actually, I believe, the first or second, and briefly then visit with him. And sometimes I do sense like they're very curious about our house. It's kind of like an art museum gallery type thing, plant sanctuary, etc. I'm gonna have to get up soon because I do want to do other stuff downstairs, and well, if you come down with me, I'll leave this here for now. Um, Although I know there's a few other tabs I want to see. Um, let's actually go to my notifications. Yeah, but is it going to start from that one? Doesn't look like it. I almost remember the number we were on. 33, possibly. No, I think it was a little lower than that. Sorry. See, it was a playlist. So when I clicked the one I started watching last night or whatever, it just opened the playlist from the top. That almost looked familiar, but no. Okay, do you remember that? Try around there. Anywho, says nice place, and he says, "You happy?" And yeah, mostly. He says, "Good." Um, I go through depression, which is a topic I think I'll save for another video. I thought about maybe doing it in this one, but it's got long and I want to do some other stuff. It's early. It's only, well, it's actually the day's going at a pretty good clip, but it's about 1 o'clock. Um, I go through bouts of depression for sure. Oh, well, life's hard. Life's hard. I knew that in my life. Growing up in the area I grew up in, you know, it can get better. In my 50s, 60s, 70s. He says, I had a lot of faraway family too, but I did see them, and and I was very proud of my family. For the most part, I really do cherish them and miss them. He says, um, and I appreciated you and your parents' friendship. Um, it was always nice to have you come visit us. And he's saying, sorry about Marie. And this is interesting how much it's coming. I mean, I'm trying to sound like him. And he laughs. um, because she actually, she did something. I mostly passed, but not entirely. I decided to try calling her the one time. The number I have is no longer. I mean, she moved. She moved, you know. And I've tried an online group for the neighborhood. It's just nothing's come through with that. And he's like, and you feel like you lost her too. Um, it's pretty sad. Pretty sad. Um, I mean, yeah, she was, somebody I grew up around. Yep. He says, yep. And I really think I might share this with him because the guy's character's come through. He doesn't know the guy, but whatever. Just silently goes on, and just have to be receptive to it. But at the same time, I think we have to be able to tell what's our own voice and what's Spirit's voice, and discern, and this is really nice to make the best decisions for us and others sometimes. But I feel like this is something I need healing from, and I know I kind of talked about it a little bit with Natasha. He's like, oh, her. I can be a male friend for you, like I was when we were living. I mean, I know we lost touch. We lost touch when you and your mother moved away, and now he has an accent. Well, he was French. To be fair, he was also quite English, but he definitely he from Nova Scotia and or no, Quebec, I think. But I think he lived in the Maritimes, so he had those influences, right? And he says, you know, um, you tried to reach her, you couldn't get through to her number, and you wish you could have. You wanted to reconnect with her. He says, you kind of wanted to mention my passing. He says, and you know how life is. But he says, and this is for me, but if it benefits anybody else, then it does. And he says, what you gonna do? What you gonna do though, right? You'll see her again someday. Now, what's interesting is with this ability, just really quickly, I don't often experience it in dream mode. But I've had two dreams. Well, I've had 2 nights with 2 dreams each night, I think. And I've had and when I dream, I don't think it's super. It's not as often as it used to be in general. Like because I'm aware of it when I do, even if I don't retain it like I used to. And yeah, I can make a dream journal, but I, don't, unless I was writing in the dark and sense it to movement and stuff, so I'd come into a different room. I could because often it's just before I'm waking up, so then I just let myself wake up naturally, and then it doesn't take long, and they're gone. And I always think I'm going to retain it better. But I dreamt of an old classmate that I'm not really in much contact with and can't seem to find. Uh, in just a little conversation that I had, I dreamt of somebody I knew from an art space. Both blonde, short blonde hair, ironically. And then last night, I can't remember if there was 2 dreams or not, actually, but there was one. And it's interesting. What I actually dreamt of, I think this is what it actually was, is I dreamt of seeing an old family video, one of the very few that we have, and it's not like I was seeing other people's family videos all that recently. I've been watching funny pet videos and this and that a little bit, but And basically, and I think I did know this one. I think I found the box, but anyway, basically, it's gonna start raining anytime, I bet. Um, they're in a section of it, so it's Christmas. It's going to the stable. Um, it's, I guess, them coming over Christmas Day or sometime around the holidays. It's my brother at a playground, and possibly, I don't think skateboarding, doing some sort of sport, and playing keyboard actually too. Um, and I guess the intent was to send this to my brother, who lived with his own mother. We had different mothers in the places that they lived in. So I remember Marie saying, "Hi, Bert, Merry Christmas. Hi, Bert." This and that. And I probably mimicked it as an impressionable kid, and I still can be impressionable. And so that's, I think, what I saw in the dream was the two of them sitting on the couch with each other, saying, "Hi, hi, you know, how are you?" Nothing much other than that. And I suppose dog didn't think something. I used to it by now. And then I woke up, and I didn't feel like it was telepathy at the time. But maybe it was. I felt like I heard, "We will start a new life together again someday." Him and his ex-wife now. And I don't know if he was ever in another relationship. He was older at that time too. And he says that I'll see them both again when my time comes. So don't rush. But I do have to quickly go to the other room, although I'm not going to roll much longer because I don't want this to be 2 hours. I have other things I want to do. And I had a flash visual where, and this is not meant to spook people. It's meant to not even entertain, but depends on the soul, I guess. It's meant to enlighten, inspire, show that this kind of stuff is real. And the ones that I'm channeling are, even though I'm like about him, I did say a couple of things. He's like, "You did. I don't know if I like it," he says, but it's just something that's been on my mind. He's like, "I know. I know." But before I came in, I was just briefly out of the room, and I sensed like he kind of leaned in and he was looking, like, for a few moments there. And then when I came back in, I pre-sensed it because sometimes that's how it happens. It feels like, so just before I came back in, I felt like he was gonna say, "Oh, study." Yeah, she did kind of sound Middle Eastern. As I keep kind of trying to do his accent, I'm sounding almost Middle Eastern. And I almost am. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But the roots of people is interesting. So, says, "So what you doing today? What you doing today?" And I says, "I'm gonna watch a video now. I've already been out and did something and shuffled my day around, this and that. And I'm going to look through some papers maybe that I have around." It's like, "Oh, you have a fire?" Probably not, but but actually I do remember their wood stove now. It's like, "I know you do, yeah." And you like their visits. You like their visits, right? Says, "I did too." And he says, "Do I wish that I'd been better to Marie?" Yes. I wish that it had been better in a lot of ways. And he says, passing, you know, there is a bit of a review, he says. And he says, I can't remember if he smoked, but I'm making it sound like he did with the voice a little bit. But he says, yeah. And he says, there wasn't much, but what I mostly saw was fear and discomfort. I mean, I was shown because that was there too. I was shown the times we appreciated each other's company, but it was like the other side was stronger, and it was like this is a bit of the lasting imprint that I left on her or others that I maybe treated a certain way. And he said, and um, this is the part that I needed to learn from. And he says, yeah, your mother, she may have, well, she hasn't honestly said much, but um, she was going by what she was told. And I ain't no saint, he says, but please remember that I'm a good person as well. And he says, I hear you say you saw that. He says, thank you. Just channeling the soul of a loved one of mine that passed away. And the viewer goes, whatever. Not everybody's thing, you know. You could have done yours next, but because I'm so nice and everything. But I am going to wrap this up soon. I almost watched my mother, possibly Burke. Again, Burke's not one to sit and look at videos very much, and I don't know if she is either, to be honest. But I mean, they both knew this person. In fact, I had emailed him. I'm pretty sure I'd emailed him about that. He hasn't said anything about it though, but I'll have to look at that. Why he wouldn't have, I don't know. Maybe he's processing it his own way. You know, it's true. I mean, he never lived in that town, so he only saw them around holidays. A fair number of them. I honestly don't really remember him being there during them, but you know, and or being with them, being around them very often. Maybe he wasn't. You know, maybe he only met. I almost kind of remember, and I don't remember how it came up. You know, before Rod's passing, but I almost kind of remember him saying that he just look at the plants and how it still needs pruning. That he, you know, wasn't around them a lot. I almost feel like he was maybe around them more, so why would it be all that much more? And it was not long after seeing her twin that I found out. I don't even a sight that I'd never seen before either. I don't even know how it kind of came to be, but I found out. So he says, "But you're good, right?" And he's like this, and it's like, "Yeah, I'm doing mostly okay." He says, "Good to hear." I just need to take a moment because I don't think I've grieved this one, to be honest. It hasn't been that long since I found out. Like I say, when we moved away, the wife was in some contact. I don't think he was much of a phone person. I don't think was a social media person either. He was about people visiting, and honestly, I think he was slightly introverted too. And I do think he was quiet. So I've had my struggles, my I don't want to say the wrong word, but struggles in the mind. I tried to be pleasant. I know sometimes I wasn't. That's all there is to that. He says, I was told that your other friend or observed that your other friend had said that, she felt that it was okay for guys to show emotion, for the most part, if it was in a healthy way. Um, is what I'm adding to that. And he said, I gave him a time. I'm older, right? And I'm in my late 50s, early 60s now. That's the age I chose to come back to. Like I say, I had a rough upbringing. It made me who I was. And he says, of course, I had good as well. But he says, aside from maybe not having connections like he would like, or kind of keeping people at a distance, he says his grandkids, his siblings, he had pretty good relationships with most of them. And basically, and this is, I'm not using his voice, but whatever, still, or it's like, yeah, I feel like I'm being told it. He still he had a good life around that time. He says it was just before my health started to do things, and I said, take care of yourself, right? And he says, but yeah, he says, so I, you know, I see how my passing is affecting people, and across, male, female, old, young, he says, and he says, it is what it is. He says, I can't tell them not to feel emotional, and that's up to them, he says. So it's from that I kind of gather like he's also kind of in a way saying, I'd rather they be happy, think happy, or not reveal their sadness, but at the same time, he can't tell them not to if that's what they feel. So that makes sense. Um, he says, because those were her grandkids. I don't know if I really knew about his grandkids that much. And even though hers were kind of like his, there is a part of me that feels like he wants to say, hey, you may have felt like we were grandparents to you. I didn't have grandkids I saw that often. You were like a grandkid to me. And I was a kid and a teen in those years. He says, you seem like a fine young man. I was happy to have you in my life, okay? And I should probably leave you to your date, but I wanted to come visit. Your dad said that you might want to hear from me, that you'd be able to. Um, we have coffee, we have beer occasionally with each other. He says, it's nice to see him again. He says, I bet you miss him. He says, hey, you can cry. I understand. You do what you got to do. He says, I don't need to be here for it though. I don't think I really do. He says, so bye for now, friend. Just disappears. And I know that he's old and a bit more fashioned, but honestly, I still think that it depends on the person. Some people that are older or of any gender show their emotions more than any others. I mean, in this day and age, especially. And men don't shy from showing aggression sometimes. I mean, not personally, thankfully, but um, I do want to keep this under 2 hours, though. I do want to do other things, but that was interesting. I feel an interesting sense of peace after that visit, actually. And maybe you experienced it too. The thing is like, and this is not the same as Teresa. This is my way of doing it. So, but the thing is that um, people get into watching the famous ones because they relate, because it's interesting in some ways. They're curious. They like to, and it brings you healing. So I hope that it may have brought some healing to anybody who watches this after the fact, since nobody watching now. I'm trying to download this if I can. Danny's starting. It was a great big green dot, but then again, the other two are just as big as I guess. Yeah, he wasn't. It's a tough circumstance. He knows that movie. He was making think of it and think for the night. She might, especially under her stress. So we'd rather just not go there. I mean, he's kind of made it obvious, kind of not, but yeah. He's still a bit embarrassed by product to customer, but shouldn't be. And I thought we had before, maybe not. Anyway, I don't want this to be too much longer. Fortunately, there hasn't been much engagement or interaction, but that's okay. This is a noise outside. I think I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you. Take care.